Okay, we are live. I'm attempting to make an AI tuning guide today because we don't really have a easily accessible one. There's a few around, and there's probably one somewhere in one of the RWP documents, but it's pretty hard to read, so I'll do my best to explain this. This is the AI Manager tab. It is accessible on your sidebar or on your toolbar in the VAB. If you do not have it, you can go to the BDA armor settings, and you can toggle it here in Graphics and UI settings. The PID is tuned in the PID controller. So if you press this question mark, it'll give you some little hints. If you press the I button, it will give you an info dump and give you a pretty decent explanation of what each value does. P is how hard the AI will pull on the stick. I is how much the AI will basically correct itself for a lead. So that's the best way to imagine it. If you set it too low, the AI will undershoot when pulling. If you set it too high, the AI will overshoot when pulling. Steer damping is how much the AI will dampen its own values. So if you set it too low, you will have a wobbly craft. If you set it too high, you will have a very stiff aircraft that refuses to turn. Personally, I set P to 20, I set I to 65, and I ignore damping. The PID auto tune button will basically set your craft to fly in across a few waypoints at certain speed that you can set, and it will tune these three values over time. It only tunes these values over time. You cannot have dynamic damping open, it will not work. When you feel like auto-tune has done its best work, you can return to the hangar and you can press the restore settings button that will be found here. We're not going to be talking about auto-tune today because auto-tune can be very broken and it only really works for certain aircraft. We're going to set this plane free to fly, turn off the debug line for some prettiness, and we are going to enter the air. Fastest way, simplest way, least laggy way to test things is to open up the wing commander in the modules button of the weapon manager, command stealth, and set the plane to do a hard turn using attack position. And just seeing how it does. And it does pretty well. I mean, it's pointed itself towards attack, so I'm going to have to artificially screw the plane over a bit by opening up dynamic damping. Dynamic damping is a highly customizable way of editing your damping value. What it does is it sets two values for damping depending on how far away you are from your target. So if this plane was facing over here, off-target damping would be where it is in a lower value, so you would be allowed to turn faster. As it is, it's aimed exactly where the plane wants to be, so the damping is high as to prevent the plane from twitching everywhere. I personally use 3-axis dynamic damping. It allows you to edit each damping value according to their 3 axes of movement, which would be pitch, yaw, and roll. If you turn this off, you'll have a different screen which just has these values, but only as a universal. For 3-axis, I set my damping factor to 6.5. I'm not going to really try to explain this, it's kind of hard. It basically sets like what kind of line there is between off-target and on-target, and the lower there is, the more dramatic a difference there is between on-target and off-target. If you set it to maximum value, it'll just be kind of a flat difference, if that's explaining it right, but it is what it is. I set it to 6.5 because I'm a pro though. I need to make a little bit of a difficulty for the plane here. As you can see, despite this pretty shitty value, it's actually flying pretty well. This is because we're not actually doing anything right now. Were the plane actually fighting, it'd be a lot worse. And it's basically just trying to keep a straight line right now, and it's already having trouble. So, seeing as we're already twitching, I can just see where twitching, which is obviously there's some pitch problems. So we're going to scroll up to pitch. We're going to turn up pitch damping to, I don't know, 2, 2.5. And that slowed down the oscillation a little bit. I'm going to also turn up roll to about 2, 2.5, and yaw to 2, 2.5. There you go. we've got a plane that's almost stable, flying in what is essentially a straight line. So what happens if we attempt to make a hard turn? We overshoot, we start oscillating, we can't get our aircraft very well directly onto the flying target. Eventually, this might correct itself. However, you don't want this to happen in a fight. This just means that you're going to start spinning out wildly and terrible things are going to happen. So, we up the values for everything. How did that correct itself so fast? I don't see that. Yeah, so you can see we yawed up really hard, and our roll is pretty wild. You want this to basically level out instantly, so we're going to turn the damping to 4.0 and try it again. And we see here that we've got a bit of yaw problems, so we're going to turn yaw up as well. 4.0 and 2.5. And we've actually getting pretty close already. It's locked on very nicely, very quickly, so I'm gonna make another turn. We overshoot massively in pitch. We turn pitch damping up, I don't know, pretty significantly, 3.0, 3.5. We set it to make another attack. And it's actually pretty close already. God, I'll target pretty quickly. We try and find out what the problem is. It looks like roll, because you can see we're rolling a bit too much there. So we're going to turn this up to 5.5, 5.0. You want between 0.5 and 2.5 difference between on target and off target, and you want on target to be higher. We're going to do another roll. We stall out a little bit for pitch, and we're still rolling a bit too much, so I can't really tell if that rolls from just the plane being pointed the wrong way. Okay, so there's definitely a pitch problem, so we're going to turn pitch up to 6.0, 5.5. You can go much more gradually and fine-tune this a lot more than I do, but I'm trying to make a quick guide here, so we're just going to keep going until the value looks okay. Okay. That was pretty fast. So we save our settings, and then we start, I don't know, a competition. You could stop here if you don't want to run competitions and combat testing, and watch your own craft and other people's testing, but I like to do a little bit of tournament running, so to our nice testing plane. Right. And this is most of what you're going to be doing with testing the AI. You're going to be watching what your AI does in combat situations and attempting to fix it. As you can see, my guns have slightly odd divergence, and that's not so optimal, but that's not the important thing. We just want to see if the AI can point itself at a target properly. And it's quite indecisive right now, but eventually it gets itself right on target. It shoots both its guns and completely misses due to divergence. And we see that yaw is a bit of a problem. We also have to restore the settings. Whoops. Alright, let's see how it is now. There you go. It's much more decisive than it used to be with the new settings. And it's actually doing a pretty decent job of keeping itself on this J8 tail. However, we can see that there's a little bit of roll instability, so we're going to turn this up a little bit. And this should just keep us glued onto that J8 tail. Though we appear to have attracted a certain jaguar's attention, so a small problem. Yeah, that's basically it. As you can see, the AI is handling itself very well. Anything here is just the plane's problem, now that you can tell that the AI is very confident. That's basically it. You just increase the damping value until it's flying in a straight line. If it's like hesitating a bit too much, or if you think it's not pulling as hard as it could be, you reduce the damping. Otherwise, you just change these values, you change the plane, you do as you please. That's all, really. Bye. Okay. Well, it's been a bit. I've been told that yes, my tuning video is not horribly wrong, but I should do a bit on auto tuning. So we open the auto tuning settings, Stop time override for a bit. Read through these. Of course, the eye will have some information, a little bit too much, in my opinion. And I actually don't really know what these three values do. So you can ping dock nappers. What this value does, this is the altitude where the plane will attempt to auto-tune. Try and keep this within your expected combat altitude. It's not very important down low, but it will get important up high. Auto-tune speed is the speed, well, the target speed for auto-tuning. This is relevant because you want to keep it where your average dogfight speed will be, so I don't know, 100, 150. If you want to go fast, set higher. XP, it determines whether this value will stay the same during the auto-tune. If you have a P value, you like to fix it. If you don't, you can let it slide what it wants. Clamp, it determines whether the values for the auto-tune will stay within the clamp regime, which is 0 to 20 for steer power, or 0 to 100, 200 when unclamped for steer power. We're not going to bother with that. We're just going to start the auto-tune. We're going to press go on the pilot. It'll take off. Now, while we're doing this, we're going to talk a little bit about time override. Time override is what you do to speed up this whole deal a bit, because the auto-tuning does take absolutely forever if you want a decent result. So you take your time override. It's by default set to 1. In theory, this is a perfect override. It will, all results will remain exactly the same during the override as if they were not being overridden. I don't really trust that. There's been some weirdness. It's probably mostly fine, but especially for auto-tuning purposes, it's definitely fine, but so jack it up. Let your plane go neum for a while. Eat dinner, come back, do whatever. In addition, I have been informed that dynamic damping does in fact work with the BID auto-tune. And so does 3-axis, it just takes a longer time. With that, when you're done auto-tuning, it should save automatically the best value. In practice, this hasn't worked for me. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or not, but just wait a while till it gets to a decent point. Screenshot the settings by dragging this out, and if I open up, it'll work. Screenshot the settings, and then don't save, and go back and press the restore button on your AI right here, and I'd see if that works. But I have an error, so I don't know. It probably doesn't work for me. I'm gonna try and save it. I'm gonna see if that works when I get back. Going to the hangar. I'm gonna press restore. Okay, yeah, so something's obviously wrong with my Kerbal Space program, but I think you get the idea. You let the auto-tune run. As far as I know, you're not supposed to press save, it saves automatically, and then you go home into the SPH and press restore, and that should work. My BD armory is fucked. But hey, that's your auto-tuning guide.